What was your worst wrong text sent? Story 1. I was talking to a girl I was super into at the time. We were trading pictures back and forth. This was literally a month after turning 18. For some really stupid reason, I didn't think to do this over Snapchat and instead sent pictures I took with my camera and were in my gallery. The next day, I was texting a school group chat, senior year high school, and I went to send a picture of something, and of course I sent the wrong picture. It happened to be a picture of my banana with ice cream all over, if you catch my drift. Very graphic. This spreads like wildfire through the school. Before I even finish the day, I get called to the office. Police are there. I was interrogated. There just happened to be minors in the chat. And by minors, I mean 17-year-olds that were months away from 18. I was taken home directly by the school administration. I tried overdosing sleeping meds after my parents found out, and I felt like my life was completely over. I was taken to the hospital to get detoxed. Then I was sent to a psych ward for 3 weeks. It was basically a nicer prison. When I came back to school, my reputation had been completely and utterly destroyed. I was in the local news labeled as a pedo. I still had to go to court. The people in the group chat ironically testified in my favor, saying it was not sent with intent, which is true obviously. I ended up having to do 40 hours community service and had multiple misdemeanor 3 charges for every minor in the chat. To this day, that was one of the worst times of my life, and it all started over fat fingering the wrong picture in my gallery. Really, it all started because I was stupid enough to not just use Snapchat. Moral of the story, always send nudes on Snapchat. Story 2. Back when my brother and I were in high school, my dad would get drunk and be a jerk. Well, my brother and I were each other's support person. One day, the whole family was in the living room together watching a movie. My dad had recently walked in, while my mom, brother, and I had been there for a while. Dad said some shit that bothered me. So I went to text my brother about how much of an asshole Dad is. Well, I accidentally sent it to Dad. My body went into shock, but my mind went into survival mode or something, because I felt myself just push my phone into the crack of the couch. Then I walked straight to Dad and said, "Hey, I lost my phone. Can I use Find My iPhone on yours to find it?" He grabbed his and said, "Oh, a text from my son." I laughed and grabbed it before he read it, deleted the text, rung my phone, and was luckily in the clear. Ever since that day, I always clear my messages with him. Story 3. Was stoned at home watching TV texting a girl I was dating and my best friend from high school simultaneously, separate chats. My friend at the time was struggling with addiction problems, and at the time I felt like I was being used and taken for granted and said something along the lines of, "He's probably getting coked out again," to the girl, but I actually sent it to my friend. I felt a dread I've never felt before. Because I love my friends and I felt like I betrayed him by talking shit. I immediately apologized and explained the mix-up. Took ownership, but felt so bad for so long. But that girl is now my wife, and that friend was one of my groomsmen and gave the speech at our wedding, and I was his best man and also gave a speech at his wedding. Turned out my text helped him realize he had hit bottom, and he made some really positive changes, and I couldn't be more happy for him. Story 4. Oh man. My 21-year-old son, at the time, was living with me as he was between places and trying to sort some things out. At the time, I had the Motorola Droid with the hardware keyboard, so I tended to type and send without double-checking my work. One day, I meant to send him, "Can you join us for a sec?" as my gal, and I needed help with something and really needed another pair of hands. Somehow, not only did I typo that one word that you all see coming, but I double-typoed it to send, "Can you join us for sex?" When he sent back, thankfully, I don't think so, and I looked, confusedly, as to why the fuck he wouldn't help us with something we needed him for. I realized how I had fucked up. After my profuse apology and correction for what I meant to say, we never spoke of it again. Story 5. I used to work in an agency that shared offices with other 2 companies. We were like 70 people in the building, and almost all of us were in the same WhatsApp group created by a lunch person who used to bring food to almost everyone at the building. WhatsApp was where they'd share the menu, and you just asked what did you want for that day. One day a girl from another office came late and mistakenly sent a message to that group intended for his boyfriend. The message read something like, "I'm safe, my love, I arrive later though." This was on that fateful era on WhatsApp when you weren't allowed to erase nor edit messages. So I took a screenshot intended for my pals group, but mistakenly I sent it to the same group with the caption, "What an idiot," and hit enter. I realized my mistake almost immediately, but there was nothing I could do. All my coworkers saw the message but didn't say anything. I just left the group, and nobody ever said anything about it. I left the company like 1 month later. Story 6. This wasn't me, but my ex-GF. It was years ago when we were dating. It was long distance, so we would send saucy texts. She was still in college, and I just graduated and was back home. There was a girl in her class who she couldn't stand who really wanted to be her friend. She complained about her all the time. She was a clinger. So my GF meant to text me, but texted this other person. I just came so fucking hard, and I was thinking about you. She realized what she'd done and texted the other girl like, I'm so sorry, that was meant for my boyfriend, and she was cool about it and laughed it off. But my GF was so humiliated, and it just compounded on the fact that she couldn't stand this person. She called me immediately, so embarrassed, like, what do I do? I was hysterically laughing and was like, I mean, you addressed it. That's kind of all you can do, lol. Like, maybe you can use the awkwardness as a more reasonable tool to avoid hanging out with her, I guess? I felt so bad for her, but it was funny as hell. Story 7. I got to work in the morning and settled in. My boss chewed me out for doing several things that she had told me to do in exactly the way she had told me to do them, and then I had to leave to go run errands for the business. While I was gone, I messaged my wife complaining about my boss and saying some pretty harsh things. Except I had messaged my boss. For bonus points, my wife worked there too, and the boss was her longtime friend. When boss responded to message instead of wife, I legitimately almost peed my pants in fear. Returning to work was incredibly awkward, but despite having to deal with some passive-aggressive attitude from boss, it blew over in time. Boss was and is known for taking her, often completely unrelated, frustrations out on employees in passive-aggressive ways, so I don't think it was an incredible shock for her to learn that someone was fed up with it. Story 8. A coworker and I had the same job at one point. She got promoted, so I took on her tasks until they could hire her replacement. I asked her a question regarding her now old job, and she basically blew me off. I thought I sent an IM to another coworker saying something like, I'm so done with her. I don't know why she can't help me with this question. She just got promoted a week ago, so I know she has the answer. You guessed it, I sent it to her. She responded with, did you mean to send this to me? And my heart just sank. I went over to her desk and apologized and said I was stressed out from taking on both jobs, and she said it's fine, we all get that way sometimes, but things were awkward between us ever since. I still feel bad, and this happened years ago. Story 9. Had been talking to someone for 4 hours straight. We both had a bit of a crush on each other, so we'd normally just let it go until one of us had to leave, but I was honestly exhausted because 4 hours. So I told him my battery was dying and had no charger at the time, so I was going to hang up so I could save the battery for emergencies. Immediately after, someone else texted me to ask if they could talk for just a minute because they had something on their mind. I sent back that I was in no rush and that they could take their time talking. I sent it to my crush. So I told him that they were coming over in person, and it was a necessary text for clarification. Then I called the other friend back, talked for a few minutes, then they said, so how's crush's name? I said they were good, but said they were busy when they suggested that we make it a three-way call. At that moment, my crush's voice said, I don't recall being busy, but I'm impressed how long your phone's battery is lasting. So, yeah. I hung up immediately and died inside for a few minutes. When he called me again, I explained myself. He was a great guy and understood. We stayed good friends and almost started dating almost a year later.